Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, many people's favorite game in the Assassin's Creed franchise. Nate and I went back and played it recently. It's going to be uploaded to the Let's Play channel very soon, Degenerate Plays. The link is in the description down below for you to check that out. We hope you have fun over there. This game is really interesting and really special, and it does a lot of new things and a lot of old things even better than previous games did. So what makes Assassin's Creed Brotherhood so special? Before we hop into it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you are a fan of Assassin's Creed, we do a lot of coverage on this franchise. We talk about the games a lot because it's one of Nate and my favorite franchises, and same with my wife Jill, who loves it too, so there will be more AC in the future. I think the first thing we wanted to mention with this game is that it's really the first AAA Assassin's Creed sequel to an Assassin beforehand. So it's worth mentioning, Altair did get some side stories. He got like the Altair Chronicles on the DS, he got Bloodlines on the PSP. I would argue most fans of Assassin's Creed didn't even play those. The thing with Brotherhood is I feel like this game is actually essential and central to Ezio's growth. Now, I think you and I both used to have a kind of bad take that Ezio didn't grow in Assassin's Creed 2, partially because we never got to play Bonfire of Vanities because Ubisoft randomly cut that portion out of the game and then sold it as DLC. So I feel like some of the blame for that bad take is on them.
Right, it's not our fault.
No, it's not our fault. I don't accept any responsibility. But with this game, I think it's really cool to actually see a AAA sequel to Ezio's story because it did a lot to add to it.
Yeah, it really fleshed out his relationships with other characters too. I thought that was pretty cool. If you just played Assassin's Creed 2, all of his relationships, like with Leonardo da Vinci, Caterina, and some of the other like 5,000 women he sleeps with over the course of the series.
Not enough, in my opinion,
right.
But yes.
All of those would just be confined to one game, which is fine. I mean, every single other Assassin's Creed game basically did it, but it's nice to have a second game that actually expands on those so you can see him interact with Leonardo again and seeing how the two of them are more than just good friends. Like, they're great friends. They're like best friends. They're, some would say, even more than
getting
friends.
Close to my shipping fantasies
Right.
of Leonardo and Ezio, I'm not gonna lie.
It was great how it expanded the 2's ending, which both of us are critical on the ending of 2.
Yes.
But it is still cool that it expanded on that.
Well, because that adds to his growth. He learned his lesson.
He did, yes.
And I don't feel like he would have learned his lesson if Brotherhood hadn't happened.
Right.
It would have just been like, well, it's good. I don't need to hurt anyone anymore. We're good here.
Yeah.
And instead, he actually kind of learns sort of what the assassins are more about, because I would argue he kind of became a master assassin by the end of 2, but he really is in this game.
Right. Well, and part of that also has to do with the idea of a central villain, too. Rodrigo Borgia was the main villain of 2, but then with Brotherhood, not only is Rodrigo back in the game, but you have Cesare Borgia. And you can see how Cesare was influential in 2, not as like a main character that you see on screen, but as a character in that world. And it really just added on to the overall story of Ezio between 2 and Brotherhood. Revelations does kind of split off from these two games a little bit later on and goes into its own story a little bit, but Brotherhood and 2 are very close in the story.
They're really companion games. Brotherhood pretty much starts like right after 2 ends.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. I also think that with that, it's not even something I wrote down, but in response to what you said with Cesare Borgia and everything, I actually think that this game did one of the best implementations of the idea of the pieces of Eden being so tempting and corrupting. This piece of Eden goes all over the place. I think 2, with the Bonfire of Vanities expansion and stuff, did a very good job at the end. But since a lot of people never got to play that because it was add-on content, it's one of those things where I think this did a really good job built into the game of showing sort of those pieces of Eden, the corruption around them, kind of the violence that they spur on. There was a lot of stuff in 2 with reading the codex entries of Altair, but you're actually firsthand experiencing it in Brotherhood. Like, that piece of Eden is a problem for this entire game. At the start of Brotherhood, to kind of mention what you were going off of, you know who your enemies are and what you're trying to do. I think that that's unique compared to 2.
Right.
Because in 2, like you said, it was Rodrigo Borgia, and there were the Templars, but from the beginning, you know Cesare and the Templars are the enemy. You're going after them the entire game. It is just one focus. And I think that that helped Brotherhood be a very focused game, despite its setting opening up, I think, Nate, you wanted to talk a little bit about Rome in general.
Yeah, so Rome is one of my favorite cities just ever in general. So obviously I really like it and think it's very special in this game. You're not just in the city of Rome. There's countryside, there's cityscapes, there's ancient ruins, there's massive historical landmarks like the Colosseum and other stuff like that. They all combine for one big city of Rome. And you see all different kinds of areas and all different everything, all different diverse landscapes and markets and people and stuff like that. But you're all still in the same city. And with that, they added in really cool stuff of like property ownership, which you can actually buy and renovate things. Like you can renovate the aqueducts in the city because they're ruins, and then you buy them and renovate them. In number 2, you could buy and renovate stuff in the villa, but that was it.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to like Florence and buy something, or Venice and buy something. But this game really expanded on that, and in my opinion, probably did it either the best or one of the best in the entire Assassin's Creed franchise.
It ties directly into that Cesare Borgia conflict.
It does, yeah.
Because you are trying to liberate the city. You're trying to improve the city.
Right.
The city has been kind of put into disrepair and ruins, and now obviously this city is still going to essentially be under the Ottoman thumb. But the thing that I think is cool about it is sort of Ezio's going around. He's not only freeing the city, and he's not only doing one of our favorite things. They added sort of a stronghold feature in this game where you would go in, you'd have to eliminate the Templar captain. We love those, the Borgia Towers. But it also added in the idea of improving the world around you in the city other than just through kills. Being able to actually impact that world was really cool. And in a final thought on Rome itself as a city, I think this was the groundwork for a lot of Assassin's Creed games after it. Brotherhood, then Revelations, then especially Unity and Syndicate. But this idea of one huge city, which other RPG games were doing, other big, huge Xbox, PlayStation, PC games like Grand Theft Auto, this was such a cool way to implement a big, huge map in the world, but make it historical.
Yeah, that was pretty great. And within the world, too, there was like Assassin's Tombs. Kind of like from 2. Remember 2 had Assassin's Tombs, but this one they're called Romulus layers. Basically, they had all these layers that you have to go through and essentially get an item at the very end that a key that you would use to unlock the armor and dagger of Brutus.
Which is awesome.
Which is one of the coolest unlockable outfits, I think, in Assassin's Creed in general. But with that, it also expanded cosmetics and weaponry and customization with collecting and stuff like that.
I truly believe that this game solidified in the series the idea of a signature weapon and signature armor. You had those kind of hidden in 2 as side stuff, again, where you'd get the armor of Altair and you get Altair's sword eventually by doing stuff. But this game brought it back, and it would have been very easy for that idea to die. This idea kind of sticks through the entire series of like working towards like a weapon or a big cosmetic or a whatever to be, look, I'm a master assassin. I played this game a lot, and it kind of shows that off in the world and lets you enjoy that. I really love how this game does it because, again, it's a blueprint for future games. Like, if you want to look at what other games did good in that regard, it can partially be traced back to Brotherhood.
Well, yeah, and even in like Valhalla, there's the Thor armor, and you can get Mjolnir, which you have to find in like a random area. Also in Valhalla, you can get Excalibur.
Unity, you got like the Sword of Eden, obviously.
Yeah.
There's things throughout all the series, and I really think 2 and Brotherhood helped with that.
Yep, they started that. Some other cool stuff with Brotherhood are like the combat and traversal. This is the game where they are actually beginning to grow from 2. 2 set the foundation for expanding the combat and the traversingness of the game. This one did it better.
Yes.
They added in insta-kills, which I was always bad at, but they added them in. The gun was faster to use, and the coolest part to me was that was actually implemented in the combat. You could use the gun on counter kills, which I thought was cool, and insta-kills.
You just made me think of something. Allowing the horses in Rome, in the city.
Yeah.
That made traversal so much more fun. You could take your horse from one end of Rome to the other end. On the way, it's kind of like GTA. I don't want to keep going back to that, but it's such a staple for open world games. You'd be going and you'd see like, oh, a Borgia flag or a tower I should take down or something. You'd go do that, and then you'd get back on your horse and keep going. Because it adds in the idea of the kingdom from Assassin's Creed 1, but it implements it into Rome.
Yes.
Which I think was really, really cool because that was kind of missing in 2. kind of moving on, I think my favorite that has been gone for a while is managing assassins in the Brotherhood. Now, I understand it was named Brotherhood. Well, you'd expect that, but it came back. This was something that was interesting because you'd level up assassins after recruiting them. You go help them, recruit them, you'd level them up, you could summon them in combat by tapping L1 or left bumper or whatever it is on PC, because I don't really play with mouse and keyboard on this game. And it really tied into the master assassin feeling of Ezio because you'd fix up their armor, give them better weapons, you'd dye their clothes different colors, and then you'd send them off on missions to different places where you could read a little bit of lore about what they're doing. There would be percentage chances based on how high of a level these assassins were. And I think it really added to the overall story because Ezio would eventually end up promoting them to a full assassin and even get a cutscene and everything.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. This was in this game, Revelations. They had it in 3.
It wasn't as good in 3.
It wasn't as good, but it was there.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in 4. I'm trying to think back. It's been so long since I played that.
It was sort of in Syndicate with your gang.
Yes, that's true. It was, sort of. It's not really the same. But Brotherhood, I think, was one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I just thought it was neat how all the missions you could send them on, they all had their own stories. Now, some of the stories were kind of stupid. Like, they were very basic stuff.
Assassinate a scholar. This man can't be allowed to teach that the Templars are good.
It's like,
kill him.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
It was stuff like that. But at least there was something. So it wasn't just like, hey, go beat up a nun. And you're just like, why are we doing that? But the story would be like, oh, the nun's actually a Templar prostitute, and you have to go beat them up. I'm just made that up.
Oh, yes, it's like they sold me a bad pizza recipe, and then they had their wife beaten. You should go take care of him. It's like the nicest husband ever, but he's like, oh no, I guess their husband's gone. I'll have to move in. I do want to mention really quick with that, I truly think this aspect of the franchise degraded after Revelations.
Yes.
Because in 3, they tried to give everyone a personality, and there's a couple that they do. Like, there's an assassin recruit who ends up living in the homestead. He has some sort of a personality. I believe he was a defected, like, he left the British Army and refused to fight in the Revolutionary War. So he had a personality. But a lot of them were just kind of throwaway characters you'd meet. They tried to give them a story, but in doing so, they removed the customization of them. They just gave them a personality, said, well, you have to work with this guy. And then people didn't really care about doing that, and then it never came back. And then you have things like ship convoys, or managing your gang, which is at least closer to what it started as. And then eventually you kind of just drop this entirely. And it's really sad because I think that this element in this game in Revelations is one of the most Assassin's Creed elements ever, and I cannot believe it's not a staple in the entire franchise.
It should have been.
It's literally all about the Brotherhood.
Yes.
I understand Arno is so low in the Brotherhood during his time. There's a couple guys like that, or maybe Shay, who's off with the Templars. You wouldn't have that. But the rest of them, really? You're just going to drop this?
Well, you know what's pathetic to me is in Assassin's Creed Origins, especially with the DLC, like the Hidden Ones DLC, the main objective of that is starting the Hidden Ones franchise.
So like how they call it a franchise.
Right. Well, okay, yeah. No, not franchise, the group. Sorry.
We're going to be selling hot dogs outside the Pyramid of Giza.
Right. Like, that's the main point, is you're starting the Hidden Ones, which are the assassins. That was not even a feature in that. This could have come back in multiple games. It could have been in Assassin's Creed Unity. It could have been in 4. It could have been in all these games. Like, this should have been a staple, like you said. But for some reason, it ended up dropping off. Yeah. And the part that was cool to me that I don't think you mentioned in Brotherhood, and I think in Revelations 2, was if you hold down LB, like hold it down, your assassins like launch a big arrow storm, which was so broken. I thought was really broken.
It was awesome,
but it was really cool.
If you summon them in, they would actually run onto the screen. They'd ride in on a horse.
Yeah,
it's kind of creepy because it means they've been stalking you the whole time doing nothing. But they'd ride in on a horse, jump off, and they'd help you in combat. There was risk reward to this, by the way.
Yeah, because they could actually die,
permanently die.
They could die,
and if they died, it actually kind of was a sad experience because what they would do is you could go up to them and lay them to rest.
Yeah,
and you'd go up and Ezio would do his Requiescat in pace. I say it badly, I'm sorry, but his rest in peace. goodbye statement, and there were assassin tombs, like there were coffins in the hideout. But it was interesting because it kind of reminded you, like, hey, how I operate this brotherhood, people will live or die.
Yeah.
That's something the assassins really did deal with, and instead of leaving that, they just dump this whole idea later on.
So another thing on our list was the Leonardo machines. One thing I thought was cool about these was that it added an interesting historical twist, which were actually based off of actual designs from history and like works of ideas of Leonardo, but this implemented them in the game. So you'd have stuff like that early version of like the tank. The flying machine was partially in 2, but this added on to it.
Yeah, for some
because
reason,
in this one, he's like, let's have a cannon on it. Let's like drop bombs.
The funniest part to me is that he is recruited by the Borgia. They basically say, we'll kill you if you don't make your machines better for us. So instead of making them slightly better, he's like, well, this is my masterpiece. I'm going to make this a B-52 bomber set during the Roman era. Right. It's like, what are we doing here?
It's like, why'd you have to do this?
Well, I could make a car, but I'm going to make a tank.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty funny, but like you said, it's very creative.
It is very creative. Missions are basically you have to go and hijack these machines, destroy the base they're hidden at, and destroy the blueprints. That's basically the missions, which they're kind of fun. I mean, they're pretty fun to drive around like a tank in the 1400s. That's pretty cool, or 1500s, whatever it is. However, also, when you complete the missions, it adds like a really cool figurine, like a display, like a statue sort of thing, of that machine in your base.
Your base operates a little bit more like a museum in this one.
Yeah,
like they expanded that. I love the villa even more. I will say that's one of my favorite homesteads. They expanded that idea, and I think that with that, one of the coolest parts to me is the underlying meaning of this too. It ties into Leonardo's friendship with Ezio. You get to actually work with him as you do more of these machines and meet him more and do stuff. You can talk to him and he gives you new inventions.
Yeah, through like a secret, not secretive meeting on a bench.
Right, exactly, where they pretend not to notice each other. It is very Ezio, like very assassin, to not keep these inventions.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is the idea of if they keep this around and they keep a fully functioning version of this, it could always fall into someone else's hands and be replicated. So at the end of these, like you said, he destroys them. But you can tell, even especially in the tank one, he kind of says, like, I wish I could keep you. You know, because like these are things that are, one, enjoyable, and two, would make Ezio's job a lot easier. But in sort of that accordance with protecting free will and the natural development of people, the assassins are trying to keep this technology out of Templar hands.
Right.
And I thought that really tied into the overall struggle going on in the game. And speaking of an overall struggle, I think the modern day...
Well, it brought back the villa. From AC2. It brought it back so you could actually explore it and run around and you could find mementos from Ezio, which I thought were cool. Which, if you actually really get into thinking of it, it doesn't make sense. Like how after like all these years, Ezio's belt or whatever it is going to like randomly be sitting on the ground.
Because this is a tourist attraction. There's problems
or
with
like
it.
the feather box is going to be sitting up on like the roof randomly. It's like, okay, you could read emails. No, like
you made it
like
sound
Rudy
really
Giuliani.
lame.
You read those emails.
Well, you can hack email accounts too.
But the emails actually have you figure out different plot points about the story, which is very interesting, and they change over the game. So if you read the emails in like the first couple of sequences, you know there's going to be some stuff in there. But if you read them at the very end, there's new things added every sequence.
Yeah, it kind of gives you the motivations of like Sean, Lucy, all these people kind of.
And even William Miles.
Yeah.
Who we don't know who he is because he just signs WM, but like everyone knows who that is.
Right. The thing I like about the villa is it allows you to actually see what Desmond is capable of. He's not going around killing people, but you're free running. You're climbing around, you're exploring, stretching your legs, finding collectibles, doing things.
Right.
It could have been bigger, absolutely. But I think that this and 3 are probably the best real-world experiences for Desmond.
Yes.
Because they actually give him something to do. Because I think that people had gotten the idea the modern day was such a placeholder and that it was worthless.
Yeah.
This was kind of where they were starting to try and do something with it. And it's kind of sad that, again, that idea went by the wayside later on, I think. It just kind of became an afterthought in later games.
Well, and then they could have done something more with it with the RPG games, but to me the RPG real world stuff is kind of the same way. in the sense that you can go and read emails, you can find out lore and stuff like that about it, which is interesting, I will say. But in all three of those games, well, Odyssey's the worst in this, but in all three of those games, you basically just go outside the cave or the house that you're in, and you just explore, like, the immediate area around you. Which, yes, is interesting, especially when you can go into, like, the actual game itself and go and find the cave from Origins. I feel like Brotherhood did this the best because you actually had collectibles and stuff to do in the villa.
Well, and Watch Dogs shows how interesting a world made by Ubisoft can be to explore in modern day.
Yep.
And yet they refuse to do much with it in the Assassin's Creed series, which I think we could get into a huge negative tangent about it, but it's very frustrating to us.
Yeah, but it's great in this game.
This game also, in a twist of fate that would piss some people off, and I enjoyed, added in a multiplayer that actually allowed cat and mouse-like experiences of violent hide and seek. I made a whole video breaking down the multiplayer of Brotherhood. I actually have one for Revelations and 3 eventually coming out. It did allow a lot of different lore dumps and stuff like that I think added onto the series. You were actually working for Abstergo.
Right. Yeah, which is interesting. And the weird thing is, I know Jill was telling me about some of the different lore dumps from this that I didn't know about. The multiplayer in Brotherhood, I thought for what it was great. My thing I will say with Brotherhood's multiplayer was, I was actually very happy it was in the game, because this expanded the Assassin's Creed franchise into something more than just a single player experience. With whatever your opinion is on the multiplayer is, whether you love it or hate it or whatever, it still made it so that you could play with other people, which then got expanded into stuff like co-op and Unity and stuff like that. I thought Brotherhood was really cool with that.
If you can add on an experience of multiplayer without taking away resources and time and quality from the single player, why not?
It was just a fun, unique mode that you can hop onto and play. And to me, that's what I think they always were, and that's what I think they always should be. You know, the multiplayer experience should not be anything that eclipses the single player experience. Like that's what pissed me off about 3, was that they dropped in lore and stuff like that into the thing that you can only find out in the multiplayer.
Yeah, there was a ton of it in 3. I would argue there was some in these games.
Right.
Like you got behind the scenes looks and some reading and stuff, but it wasn't nearly as much.
And that made me really mad, because now you're basically saying oh, well, you didn't play the multiplayer? Well, you missed out on all this lore?
I wouldn't even care if they unlocked that stuff when they shut it down.
Yeah.
According to their whole thing, they have just no plans to bother with any of it.
Right.
They just don't care.
And that's stupid.
There were additions in the other ones that added on or took away in some circumstances, but this one, even though it was experimental, it knew the direction it wanted to go and it did it. Yeah. And I think that's good.
It was simple. It was fun.
So I don't know, these are the things we think are so special about Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but we want to know what you think. I just pointed at the microphone. I'm sure you felt that. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Let us know what's your favorite Assassin's Creed game. We're interested. What do you like most or least about this one? And I have an unpopular question. I'm going to ask it again in Revelations. Do you like this game or Revelations more? I personally like Revelations the most out of the Ezio trilogy. Which is a very unpopular opinion. I think it ties everything together very well. We'll get into that in a different time. But let us know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content, and check out the Let's Play channel where we're going to be uploading parts of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood starting very, very soon. We played through the whole game, so we're having a fun time over there, and we hope you'll hang out with us and talk. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.